How does a Christian lose their faith? This is in lieu of a recent event which has taken place in the Christian music industry. John Steingard, who is the former lead singer of the Christian contemporary band Hawk Nelson, had recently written a long testimony saying that he does not believe in God anymore. And he gave a very detailed breakdown as far as why. In fact, he gave several interviews, also most notably a very lengthy interview with Way Nation on YouTube, and I'll put the link below. Check it out. It is a very humble, very profound interview. So listen to that. And I think this is something that we need to be conscious of, because this is something that we face every single day as believers and as religious people who have been brought up a specific way. When I first heard about this, I was rather curious because I wanted to hear what his background was, and my instincts were correct, because I have found throughout life, when I've heard this similar testimony, when people have left the Christian faith, most often they were people who have been brought up in religious environments, many times being the sons and daughters of pastors and preachers, people who are very hardline and religious and very rigid in their upbringing as far as what you need to believe. Now, as far as me, for those of you who don't know, I was not brought up as the son of a preacher. I was brought up in an agnostic home. My parents were actually Unitarians, but they were very, very understanding and said, whatever faith you want to do, you go ahead and do that. We're not going to force you into believe in anything. This is what we believe. You go with what you want to believe. So I'm very thankful for that. Very thankful. So when I gave my heart to Jesus Christ, I did it without any outside influences at all. It wasn't from what anybody was saying or anybody was convincing me. It was simply me opening my heart and receiving what God was telling me directly in the Spirit. It's like I had bypassed religion. It was like, whew, I just completely overshot that obstacle and went directly to Him. And it's funny because I had so many people who were Christians at that time. When I was in college, they were trying to get me to become born again, and I wouldn't do it. But they were doing that in a very forceful manner. They were saying, "You've got to do this. This is it. You know. We're coming up to the end times. You do it, you're going to go to hell. Da 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 da. We're giving the usual spiel," and that's what turned me off. That's what turned me off. But when I just completely shut them out and just let God become an experience all unto Himself, that's when I opened up my heart, and that's when I ultimately accepted Him. And then when I went in churches at that point, all of a sudden I walked into church, and I never felt free in a church. I never felt free in a single church, ever. And there were some churches that were better than others. There were some that actually were just houses of pure worship. And for that, I admire them, and I was more comfortable in there than I were in other places, especially a lot of the traditional denominational ones that were just, to me, more Bible clubs than places that just worshiped and just opened up our hearts to God. I mean, I felt more like in a straitjacket when I went into those places than anything else. But I still felt like I'm under a set of rules. Everywhere I was going was a set of rules. But every time I prayed to God, and I prayed with God, this is the thing. I never got to the point where I had to pray to God for supplication. It was always a conversation with God from the get-go. It was a two-way right from the beginning. Maybe that's the obstacle we're hitting. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. But when I had that conversation with God, it was just so open. I never had to ask God for anything other than clarification. It was simply an experience with him. And every time that I brought up experience in the church to a pastor, to a preacher, to a theologian, I've always gotten hammered. It's not about experience. It's not about experience. It's not about feeling. It's what the Bible says. That's what you got to believe. Just keep forcing yourself. You can believe it. I'm just like, something about that's not right. I've got to experience something. I've got to experience God. This is what I learned in prayer. And this is what I've learned so much for prayer, is that prayer is not something to do. You don't pray to God, you pray with him. It's a conversation. It's two ways. It's two ways. If all we're doing is praying to God and not be willing to accept that we can receive from him the same way that we give to him, we're limiting ourselves. We're seriously limiting ourselves. When someone denounces the Christian faith, like John did, excuse me, and I listened to that interview, it is clear to me that people's experience, what people are saying to him, and their definition of life's experiences defined in his mind who God is. And all that did was open up questions. And that created a distorted, misinterpreted view of God. And that's why he retracted. Now, I guess I don't know him personally. I'm just basing it on what he said. But in the interview, as you'll hear, in that link below, you'll hear it. That's profound. I mean, he's got seriously good questions. Because if your only experience of God is what's coming in this world, and what people are saying, and what people are directing, and what's on the page, you're not going to know him. You're only going to know him by the experiences you have in prayer in the Spirit. And that's where you'll see him. That's where you'll know his heart. That's where you'll know who you are in him. Of course, if you're only basing it on your life's experience for what people are saying and how they're hammering scriptures to you left and right and giving you reading plans and doing all this and the other thing, you're going to have questions. You're going to walk away. I don't blame him one bit. I give him credit. He lasted as long as he did. And when I listen to other people like Katy Perry and Lauren Daigle, who are also music entertainers, who have also started out in that industry and then kind of gone secular. Again, I don't know any of these people from the get-go, so I don't know 100%. Just know what they say. Katy Perry, I know, was the daughter of a pastor. Lauren Daigle also. I mean, she had grown up very early on. I didn't know if she was the daughter of a pastor, but I know that she had started out very early in the church. And then she eventually she kind of meandered away from it. I know that life experiences have detracted away from her, have kind of moved her away into the more secular environment. Now, I don't know her heart or where she's going. Likewise with Katy Perry. And I've never heard either Lauren Daigle or Katy Perry denounce that they say that they don't believe. I've seen their approaches, and I've seen where they've gone. But I have nothing but sympathy and empathy for them and love for them. I go online and I see a lot of these Christians hammering them left and right. Saying that, well, then they've never believed if that's the way that they did that, and well, that they need to repent, or they're going to be going to hell. They're going to have to answer to God for all they're doing. Well, naturally, if they see responses like that from the Christian community, all that's going to do is to simply affirm their own decision for why they did what they did. You're not encouraging them. You're not showing them Jesus' love. You're just hammering a human interpretation of that onto them. Of course you're gonna convince them what they did was correct. All I would do is just keep showing them the love that God showed me in my heart, and just keep moving forward. You know, a seed, when you plant it, will grow when it's ready to grow. It's not going to grow when you want it to grow. It's going to grow when it's ready to grow. It's going to be based on the soil, when it's planted, what season it's planted, how it's watered, how it's fertilized, the time of the year, and so forth. That's how a seed grows. Jesus teaches us that. So naturally, that would fall into play in our relationship with God as well. That's why Jesus used farming as a metaphor so much in his lessons to us. So I'm so empathetic and understanding to people like John and to Katie and to Lauren for where they're going, what they're going through. I understand that. And right now in life, I'm going through a lot of stuff myself. I'm going through a lot of personal circumstances right now. I'm surrounded by so many people, family, friends, who don't understand and connect with me the same way that I do. I have people who I know who don't believe. I have people who I know who have given up. I have people who I know who don't even want to listen, who connect with any of my passions, anything like that. And it's so easy just to retract and say, God, why? But when you know God's heart, after you've had those experiences with him in prayer, you'll know that God's not controlling that. I'm not blaming God for the experiences I'm having with people. I'm not blaming God with the experiences I'm having in this life. I live in a fallen world. All these experiences I'm having, if I'm having sicknesses, if I'm having catastrophic situations out there, it's not because God wills it. It's because we live in a fallen world. God has loved me before the very foundation of the earth. So I don't worry about what's happening out there. I don't worry about what other people think. I don't worry about what other people say. I don't let what they say or do change the way that I think about God. That's why I feel so much, because if you've grown up in a religious environment where God was obligatory, and people have told you that God is obligatory, naturally you're going to want to rebel. You're going to want to rebel because you don't want people telling you what to do. But when you come to a point in your life and you experience God in prayer and you see his heart and know what he feels, what he knows about you, it doesn't matter what people think. It doesn't matter what people say. You can't be moved away from the faith. You can't be moved away from your path, from your destiny at that point. Because God has revealed it to you. People didn't do it. God did it. It's that simple. It's only what God has experienced for you. And that's through prayer. Our inability and our unwillingness to allow the Spirit to dominate our lives will ultimately drive us away from God in our minds. But when we just focus our hearts on him, just know what he has revealed to you. And if you've never experienced that thing with God, just pray with him. Don't pray to him, pray with him. I can't stand when people say pray to God. No, pray with him. Pray with him. Because prayer works both ways. It's a two-way conversation. Church teaches just so much that it's a one-way conversation. You ask God, ask God, ask God, ask God and trust him. Ask God and trust him. No! No! You pray with God, you talk to him. He answers. Talk, answer. Sometimes you just sit and listen, and sometimes you just want to just sit and just experience him. hold him and he'll hold you, and that's all prayer can be. There may be no words spoken. Many of my prayer times, no words are spoken. It's just experience, just being there with him. And when you experience that in the Spirit, in that new existence that God has told you he has made you new in. Remember what he told Nicodemus? Remember what he told Mary, his mom? He said, behold, I make all things new. He makes you new in here. And the newness is what allows you to connect with him. It's not to him, it's with him. He lives in us, so our experiences with God are always with God. When you experience something with God, it doesn't matter what people outside of God can tell you. What you know with God becomes unshakable, immovable, and there as a foundation. And there is your completion in your heart and your destiny. Now you can't be shaken anymore. And if you lose the faith, if you step away from him, God is outside of time. If he has already spoken to you and you've heard him, he has seen you already at the end of your life, the end of your physical life. He's seen everything about you that you did, you're doing, and that you ever will do. And he has picked you anyway. And when you open up your heart to accept that, and then you open up your heart to receive him and experience something with him, he'll welcome you back in as if you've never even left. Isn't that awesome? God is awesome. So don't worry about losing your faith. If you have accepted and given your heart to Jesus Christ, you are there. If you are born, you cannot be unborn. That is solid. God bless y'all. I hope this bless you. This blessed me just saying this right now. His spirit is just overflowing, man. It's just so cool. It is so cool. So stay encouraged. Stay focused, man. It's right there. And he'll do it with you. God bless y'all. Have a good night.